And good evening. It has happened again. Another one-time advisor to the former president is learning that a lawful subpoena to testify before Congress is not something to defy. Peter Navarro today joined Steve Bannon in the dubious distinction of being indicted on criminal contempt of Congress charges in the January 6 investigation. He was arrested at a Washington area airport on his way to Nashville, made a court appearance today. Now, this comes as the House January 6 committee prepares to hold televised hearings next week, starting Thursday night in prime time, 8 Eastern. CNN's Ryan Nobles is at the Capitol for us with the very latest. So what are the two contempt charges Navarro is facing?
So, Anderson, these are two felony charges that are both related to Peter Navarro's defiance of the subpoena that was sent to him by the January 6 Select Committee. One has to do with his refusal to hand over documents that the committee is interested as part of their investigation. The other has to do with his refusal to sit for a deposition and interview with the committee. Both are serious charges. They could result in significant jail time and a hefty fine. So far, Navarro has been very defiant, just as he was prior to the subpoena being issued. What's interesting about his situation is that he did not engage with the committee at all. He claimed that he had an executive privilege protection that was extended to him by the former President Donald Trump. Obviously, the committee felt differently, as did the Department of Justice, hence the reason that he's under indictment tonight.
So what happened in court and what's next?
Well, there was some theatrics. Peter Navarro is no doubt a character, the former trade advisor to the former President Donald Trump. He complained about the way the FBI handled his situation, the way they knocked on his door for a subpoena at his apartment in Washington, D.C., the fact he complained that they arrested him at the airport in Washington as opposed to just asking him to come in and surrender on his own recognizance. But he was released from custody. They did not take his passport. They just told him that he was not able to travel anywhere outside the intercontinental United States without a specific approval from the judge. He's now going to wait a court date, and this could take some time, Anderson. Steve Bannon, who was indicted several months ago by the committee, his court date, his hearing, his trial will not happen until late this summer. What this means, Anderson, is that the information that the committee is looking for from Peter Navarro likely won't happen before their investigation wraps up, which should happen sometime this fall. But it does send a message to these other individuals who have been subpoenaed by the committee that there is some power behind those subpoenas. There is an enforcement mechanism. There are, of course, some other outstanding criminal contempt referrals, one for the former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, the other for his deputy Dan Scavino, that the Department of Justice has not acted on as of yet. But at this point, the Department of Justice showing that if you defy Congress, there will be repercussions. Anderson?
Ryan Nobles, appreciate it. Joining us now with new insight into January 6th, CNN political analyst and New York Times senior political reporter Maggie Haberman. The headline of her report in the Times tonight reads, "Before January 6, aide warned Secret Service of security risk to Pence." She uncovered the story for her upcoming book, Confidence Man. Quoting now from the story's lead, the day before a mob of President Donald J. Trump supporters stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021, Vice President Pence, Mike Pence's chief of staff, called Mr. Pence's lead Secret Service agent to his West Wing office. The chief of staff, Mark Short, had a message for the agent, Tim Giebels. The president was going to turn publicly against the vice president, and there could be a security risk to Mr. Pence because of it. Maggie's with us now. So what more can you tell us about that warning and what you learned about the events surrounding it?
Sure, Anderson, and thanks for having me. Look, this is an extraordinary moment to think that there's a chief of staff to a sitting vice president so concerned about the potential threat that is being created by a pressure campaign led and encouraged by the president who picked this vice president. It is jarring, and it just takes a minute to absorb. Mark Short had a conversation, according to sources, with Tim Giebels, the lead Secret Service agent, saying exactly what you just said, that the president was going to turn on Pence and that, they might have a security risk. Short, as I understand it, did not have a sense of what that threat could look like. I don't believe, based on my reporting, that he envisioned, what we saw on January 6th the way we saw it. But what he did realize is that the former president had supporters who were very reactive to him, who basically acted, responded to things he would say, and he could see, one person, two people, three people, several people doing something that could be problematic safety-wise for the vice president, just based on this pressure that the former president was exerting.
It is really extraordinary. A Secret Service official has disputed the exchange, saying to CNN, those with firsthand knowledge of the encounter insist a concern about violence directed at Pence or any risk posed by the former president's actions was never communicated. What do you say to that?
I stand by the reporting. And they're welcome to say that on the record.
You also found other distinct examples of the breakdown in the relationship between Trump and Pence.
I did. This was going on for some time, Anderson. There were several moments where, Pence was coming. This pressure campaign was increasing for people around Trump, people connected to Trump, people who supported Trump. When the former vice president went to Vail, Colorado on his vacation, Mark Short, the chief of staff to Pence, got a call from Kelly Ward, the chairwoman of the Arizona GOP. She had just recently joined a suit that Congressman Louis Gohmert had filed trying to pressure Pence to, exceed what Pence believed his authority was on January 6th. When this call came in, she was allegedly relaying some kind of question about Pence possibly meeting with Sidney Powell, that lawyer who had been, in Trump's favor at that point, who was advocating all kinds of wild conspiracy theories about the voting machines, and some question of whether Pence would be willing to meet with Powell while he was in Vail. When Short pointed out that Kelly Ward had joined this Gohmert suit and was suing the vice president, she allegedly said that, they wouldn't be doing this if Trump was not okay with it. There were several other moments where, the Pence team felt as if they were getting squeezed. One was that transition funding for the post-White House period for Pence's staff was not coming through. It was being delayed, and they were under the impression, this was definitely coming from Mark Meadows, the White House chief of staff. They were under the impression this might be coming from Trump. That pot of money got freed up after January 6th.
And how does all this fold into the Select Committee's investigation?
So the Select Committee, as I understand it, asked Mark Short questions about that conversation with Tim Giebels in his interview with them some months ago anyway. I think that they are trying to portray that not just that there was, this pressure campaign on Pence, which we saw in real time, but that there was real concern among White House officials about what the fallout from that could look like. And so in that respect, the fact that the chief of staff to the vice president was so concerned remains very important.